For years, I've been showing you maps like this one, but I'll be honest with you, I don't know exactly how it's made, and sometimes I even wonder what it's good for. Example being, drought is improving in south central Kansas, but water levels, well, they remain incredibly low. For that reason, I've come to the University of Nebraska, home of this, and this guy, and the National Drought Mitigation Center.
When you don't have enough water to support your livelihood, that's when you're in drought. I think the better way to say that is when you're impacted, that's when it's drought to you.
Director Dr. Mark Sabota has been with the center since day one and started the Drought Monitor back in the late 1990s.
I mean, I've personally been and worked with 85 countries. There wasn't a way to communicate and elevate drought as a hazard in our country and even globally. If you think about it, most hazards hit very fast. They have a relatively small spatial footprint. I mean, think of a tornado or a flood. Drought can cover millions of square miles and it can last days to decades. We came up with the idea to combine different pieces of data covering all spectrums of drought and show that on one map. So this is really a communication tool.
That tool is crafted by authors like climatologist Brian Fuchs, who's made more maps than most.
We're going to look at this severe drought area here, so I'll turn that back off. I think right now I'm pushing about 105 total. So during my tenure, that's how many I have done.
Analyzing things like temperatures, soil moisture, and of course precipitation, as well as reports from more than 400 observers, Brian's hand shapes the blobs you see on TV.
Let's take all the different data that we have to look at drought and take the best attributes of those tools and combine them. And that's really what the Drought Monitor is trying to do.
With so much data going into making this map here, you'd think it paints a perfect picture when it comes to drought. But how is it that while it has improved in south central Kansas, water levels in places like Cheney Reservoir remain so low?
Well, typically when we start looking at that, we call it hydrological drought. And so we know that that's going to be a little bit different than maybe meteorological drought or agricultural drought that's going to happen pretty quick.
That was a lot of terms. Let me help break this down a little bit. Meteorological drought, that's the term we use to describe the general dryness of an area. Within that, you can develop agricultural drought. That means you don't have enough moisture for your plants to thrive. You can also develop hydrological drought. That means your water levels are low. You can see improvement in the big picture, while these remain relatively unchanged.
These impacts lag after improvement has started. They still have these longer-term hydrological impacts that are sort of what I call a drought hangover. And that can still be there until you see a longer-term wet period to actually help fully recover the region.
But does that mean we shouldn't even use this map?
You know, I think the best way for people to use the map is to get a good idea of not only what's going on in their backyard, which I'm sure they're aware of, but you know, just how widespread is that drought, because that's going to really start playing into the consequences of the drought.
But when we want to show this to our constituents, they want one map with one number. What's behind the green curtain, if you will, are tons of indicators. There's a lot of other stuff on the top menu to get into maps, data, down to the county level. And we want folks to know that data is there if they so desire.
You can think about the Drought Monitor kind of like you would a road atlas. It'll get you to the general area, but if you're looking for a specific address, you might benefit from a GPS. And if you're looking for something specific like water levels, you might need a whole new map altogether, maybe this one. And speaking of GPS, we're not the only ones with this problem.
Another good example are the big reservoirs out west that, you know, Lake Mead and Lake Powell are at historical lows, even though much of the area right now is drought free.
And while they can't raise the levels in Mead or Cheney for that matter, they know the importance of increasing the awareness.
Our job is to help people hopefully reduce the impacts of drought. We're not going to stop droughts from happening.
This is real consequences. This is real dollars to them. And you have to have a sense of empathy for them, because we know, unlike other natural disasters, drought typically sticks around a while.
In Lincoln, Nebraska, Frank Waugh, KAKE News on your side.